Good evening, everyone, and welcome to All Things Brunswick. We have a great show tonight. Before we get to that, I do want to mention a couple things. May is Military Appreciation Month, so I would ask you all to thank our military for their service, and remember, freedom doesn't come free. We appreciate all of them and wish them the best. Tonight I have my co-host, who I don't know what I'd do without, Todd.
I highly doubt
Thanks for being here. And our tech guy, TK. Thanks, TK. Love you guys. Don't know what I'd do without you. And we have a great guest, but I'm going to let Todd introduce him.
Tonight we have Hal Weatherman. He's candidate for lieutenant governor and a friend of mine. And welcome, Hal. Thank you for coming.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
I've had a lot of people ask, what does a lieutenant governor do?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I am a Republican candidate for lieutenant governor, and I get asked that question all the time too. Lieutenant governor is the president of the Senate, so he presides over the state Senate. He has several key board appointments. So Lieutenant Governor serves on the State Board of Education, serves on the State Board of Community Colleges, which I'm very interested in both of those appointments for my platform, and I'm sure we can talk about some of that later.
Yes.
Also serves on the Capital Planning Commission, some lesser boards. He does serve as the president of the Energy Policy Council, which is one of those little-known entities, but it's very influential and important. Any energy policy that comes before the General Assembly as a legislative matter will first be sent over to the Energy Policy Council to vet. They bring in industry standards, industry experts from around the world if necessary, to vet those policies. And so I'm excited about that.
As in wind generation? Or?
Anything energy, anything in the state's portfolio will go before them. And then, the most obvious thing that most people don't ever think about when you elect a lieutenant governor is you do have to elect someone who could be the governor in waiting. And I don't mean that from an ambitious standpoint. I'm saying that, 5 times in our state history, the governor has either died in office, been removed, or otherwise incapacitated. And we have an automatic succession plan in North Carolina where the lieutenant governor immediately ascends to the governorship. So you always have to ask yourself when you elect a lieutenant governor, could this woman preside over 98,000 state employees? Could they be the commander-in-chief of the National Guard? We have both ground guard and air guard in North Carolina. Do they have the wisdom to pardon people, to commute sentences? Can they have almost unilateral, because people don't realize this, the governor has almost unilateral control of the state resources, meaning the real estate holdings of the state of North Carolina, which is vast. There is some check and balance on that, but it's almost unilateral. And so, does the person have the wisdom to preside over that? And so, in a nutshell, that's it. Whatever is not defined in the Constitution and or by general statute, though, I always tell people it's a position of influence. You're number 2 in state government. Therefore, your phone calls are going to be returned. And it's a great position of influence. And so it's really what you want to make of it over and above those things. I'm passionate about I preach a message of self-sufficiency all over the state. I want to make our families self-sufficient, and I want to do that first and foremost by what I call restoring the basic concept of the dignity of work, which I think we as a society have lost. And, Lieutenant Governor, because he serves on the State Board of Education, because he serves on the State Board of Community Colleges, from those 2 pedestals, I want to do everything in my power to fundamentally remove what I call the stigma that our society has put on men and women who work with their hands. And I want to drive people into the trades. We're sending generation after generation into a 4-year university system where in many instances they're coming out with a degree that's worthless. And I'm not against college. I went to college. I have a master's degree. My oldest son is in college. So I'm not against that. But, we can't keep sending kids into a 4-year university system where they're coming out with degrees in Egyptian poetry, coming out $100,000 in debt, and then they can't find a job.
Exactly.
All the while, they could easily go into HVAC or commercial welding or plumbing or electrical work, own their own business, make almost a guaranteed 6 figures a year. And if they're smart and they have the right tools, and training, they could grow a business that they could sell 10 to 15 years from now for 7+ figures and retire.
Yeah.
And so there's a disconnect there. And so I want to use those 2 board appointments. That's what I find most attractive about this office, to accomplish that. And over and above that, if the man that I want to be the governor, the man that I'm supporting, Mark Robinson, if he is the governor of this great state, I would also like to be a force multiplier for him. State Constitution grants the governor the authority to assign duties to the lieutenant governor as he sees fit. And so I would like to be a force multiplier for him. I think it's a big job to be the governor. I think you got a lot on your plate, and I think you need a confidant. I think you need someone who's got your back, and will say, you've got a job to do, and I'm here to help you, regardless of what the media says, or because it can be tough.
Right.
And so I hope Mark is elected, and I'm proud to say, Mark endorsed my campaign last week. Publicly, formally, and I'm proud of that. And so, I have good feelings about Mark's chances and my chances. I'm in a runoff, right? I first have to
Right.
get through another gate.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly when this runs, but May 14th is my runoff election, and Lord willing, and the people willing will advance, and then move on to the fall, and hopefully win there as well.
Tell us a little bit about the man, about Hal.
Well, I'm 54 years old. I've been married for 20 years to my wife, Michelle. I call her Shelley. And we have 3 kids. My oldest boy is Hayes, and he's 19, and he goes to Erskine College down in Due West, South Carolina. And that is not a direction. That is a town. It's a very small Christian school. It's a beautiful school. Built in the 1840s, and he's a runner. He's a distance runner.
He's the track star.
He's the track star. He's on scholarship, and I'm very proud of him. I'm proud of all my kids. And but he was the first out of the home. And then my middle boy, Skyler, who is 17, he is a baseball player and goes to Wake Prep, a charter school in Raleigh, right outside of Raleigh. And then my daughter, Kit, is 14, and she's a little ballerina. And is just a sweetie, and that's our life. I was the former Lieutenant Governor, Dan Forrest. I was his chief of staff when he was in office. And prior to that, I was his mom's chief of staff. His mom is Sue Myrick. She's retired now, but she was the first female mayor of Charlotte.
Right.
And then served in Congress for 18 years and was just really known as a very strong conservative voice, fiscal and social, for all things. And I tell people everything I learned in politics I learned from Sue. And but I think those jobs afforded me great experience that I tell people all the time, there will be no on-the-job training for me if you elect me as lieutenant governor. I've already been there. I was chief of staff to the lieutenant governor. It afforded me an opportunity to travel the state when I was with Dan over a 10-year period. He was in office for 8, but we campaigned 21 months for the office of lieutenant governor.
Right.
So I was really with him for 10 years. But we just traveled the state, and I think that's important because I think we did 500,000 miles of travel over that time period of in-state travel. And I think if you're going to lead a state as a governor or lieutenant governor, you need to intimately know the state.
Right.
You need to know the strengths of the state so you can marshal, you can play to your state strengths, but you need to also know, and equally important, the weaknesses of your state so that you can marshal the resources to mitigate those things on behalf of your people.
And all 100 counties are different.
Oh, they are.
Every one of them are so different.
Oh, completely
it
different.
Amazes me.
I know, and how are you going to serve those people if you don't know those people, right? How you do that? And so, I was proud of the fact I was in an 11-man primary for the Republican nomination, and we were the top vote getter on primary election night. But the number 2 guy did challenge me, which is his right, to a runoff, which is coming up. But I was the only candidate of the 11 candidates in the field that took the time to go to all 100 counties.
Right. Could you explain to our audience this primary on May 14th, the second in light of the election, and there were 11, and it got down to the wire, and because he was second with the vote getting, he gets to choose the runoff. So could you explain that to our audience?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I get that asked all the time. Is because honestly, we have not had the last statewide runoff we had. Coincidentally, was 2012. Was Dan Forrest,
Right.
Lieutenant Governor, the race that I
I
ran.
remember.
So I don't know what that says about me, but I've been a part of 2 statewide runoffs, which are very rare.
You're expensive.
I'm expensive. I am. I'm telling you what. So in North Carolina, unlike other states, runoffs are not automatically granted.
No.
So it is up to the discretion of the second place finisher. If 3 or more candidates run in a primary and none of the candidates clock 30% of the vote,
Right.
then at the discretion of the second place finisher, he or she has the right to call for a runoff. I actually think it's 8 business days. It might be 10 business days, but they have a limited amount of time where they can say, you know what, I'm going to challenge to a runoff. And he did that, the second place finisher, even though we defeated him on election night. If you throw out all the candidates that were defeated that night on primary night and just look at my performance versus his performance on
Right.
election night, we beat him by 34,000 votes, which is a lot in an 11-man field.
Yes, it is.
And we defeated him in 80 of the 100 counties. And so I'm not going to lie to you, I kind of wish he wouldn't have, right? Because that would have been nice to have spent the next 2 months, the 60 days of the runoff, basically, regrouping, re-strategizing for the general, because my general election opponent has already been selected by her party, and honestly stockpiling cash, because this
Right.
is a multi-million-dollar race, and
Yes,
so
it is.
I don't think people realize, because it's such a short race, a truncated race, how exponentially expensive runoffs are. Per capita, per day that you're in the field, it's much more expensive than the primary was, because you have to target people at such a high degree to try to mobilize them to get out to vote, and you have no help. There is no lift above you on the ticket.
Nope.
Zero.
Yeah.
Right? The only show in town statewide is basically lieutenant governor runoff and the state auditor runoff, which is
Right.
below us on the ballot. So it's of no help to us to lift people out. So this will be a very low voter turnout, just the lowest of the low. It might be the lowest in state history. And so every vote matters. Every vote
It
counts.
does, and that's sad.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, in one respect, you've already won. Okay, but here we go again.
Here we go again.
folks.
Oh, Dan Forrest texted me on election night, and he was thinking about 2012. And when it was clear I was headed to a runoff, he texted me and said, "Does this feel familiar?" And I knew exactly what he was talking about. Like, said, "Oh yes," and we had a little motto back then. We won, but we kept winning, but because if you remember in that race, we won the primary, but we had a runoff.
Right.
We won the runoff and we went to the general. And in the general, on election night, if you remember, our race was too close to call.
Exactly.
And it gave our opponent 10 business days to call for a recount. And she took 9 days to call for that recount.
Yep.
And so when Dan actually won, on election night, we had, hundreds of people gathered together, but we weren't declared the winner. And instead, we went to a runoff. Here's how this works. On the 10th day. On the 10th day, she had until 12 noon. Her name was Linda Coleman. She was our candidate opponent back then. She had until the 10th day at noon. At 11:45, Dan and I were at the state GOP headquarters in Raleigh, and we were hungry. And so Dan said, "Let's go get something to eat." So we went out in the parking lot, and we're going to go to McDonald's to get a Big Mac. And I'm driving, he's in the passenger seat, and at 11:45, her campaign manager called me on my cell and said, "This is so-and-so." And I said, "How are you?" And he said, "Are you with Dan?" And I said, "I am." And he worked for Linda, and he said, "Linda would like to talk to him right now." And I said, "I'm going to hand the phone to him." Handed it to him. He said, "How you doing?" And she was very gracious, and she conceded right there on the spot. And so I could hear the conversation. So he hangs up the phone, and I'm like, "Dude, you're the lieutenant governor." That's how it works. It wasn't in front of a bunch of people. It was in the parking lot on the way to get a Big Mac that you find out you won. And that was our entire campaign. We won, but. And so, no, listen, we don't do coronations in this state. And, I believe the Bible to be true. The Bible says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. That is actually my belief of what a primary is.
Right.
And so the second place finisher was entitled to a runoff. He called for the runoff, and I consider it great joy. As much as I might complain about it here and there, at the end of the day, it gives me 2 more months to sharpen myself right? To sharpen myself, because that's what primaries are. They're there to sharpen you for the ultimate battle. And so, we never took our foot off the gas. I've been on the road ever since.
You've been on the road forever.
We were on the road last night. We were in Charlotte. I came here from Charlotte. We got out. We actually went to a Mark Robinson fundraiser last night. Mark's been so good to me and allows me to come to his events and speak after him. And so he let me close out last night, and we went long, or maybe I went long. I don't know. But we got out of there very late and too late to go home. I mean, we're going to have to leave at 6:30 in the morning to get to Brunswick from Raleigh. And but we weren't going to get, at the rate we were going, we weren't going to get home to Raleigh until 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. So we just stayed in Charlotte and came from Charlotte, and that's what it's like every day. I mean, it's just,
Yes.
it's just, and you can't predict it. And you live out of a car. And if I look wrinkled, it's because I am wrinkled. Because I'm literally, we pull whatever blazers if I'm wearing a blazer, whatever blazers in the back seat, that's what you pull out and you make do. And, but again, I enjoy it. I really do. I love the state. Our greatest asset of the state is its people.
Yes.
And I get to meet with the people every day. So that's awesome.
One of the best compliments that I heard in reference to you is you are a natural.
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
And I thought that came
I like
from
that.
one of our voters here in the county. And I thought that was a perfect description of you. Okay.
Well, I like that.
Yeah. I
I mean, I'm not trying to listen. I am who I say I am. I'm, we're all fallen and in need of God's redemptive grace. And so I know my limitations. I know my past. I know everything. And I'm just so grateful that that God could use a wretch like me. I don't know how else to say it. I really am. And I just, I'm thankful to have the opportunity. I really am. Win, lose, or draw, this journey has been fun. And it's
Tiring.
It is tiring, but who else gets to take a moment in their life? And if we're successful in the runoff, I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be a 2-year commitment just to get to to serve for 4 years or 8. But it's 2 years of a journey, and that's such a rare thing.
Yep.
It's most people don't ever get that opportunity or seize that opportunity or feel led to do that, and I get that, but. So I'm trying to remember every day. I mean, we jokingly call it moments of reflection. In the past, because I worked on so many campaigns with Dan Forrest and with his mom, I was always busy, always on the go. And I'm still busy, and I'm still on the go. And my staff will tell you, we will purposely, even if we're going to be a little bit late, stop somewhere. And I'm like, man, it's a pretty sunset. Man, look at that. Look, we're passing over a waterway that's not, I don't have in Raleigh. I'm like, stop. We're going to take a picture of that. And I think it's because I'm getting older and I'm realizing this is too special to just breeze through it.
And you're a natural.
Well, I'm trying to stop and smell the roses.
Exactly.
I really am.
Appreciating our state.
Yeah.
I think society's kind of forgotten that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it's
You have to
about.
make yourself do it.
Yeah.
Because you are busy. You're always busy.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, man, this is life. This is what I'm here for. And if I don't stop and do this, I might not. Well, we'll get it next time. Well, next time might be 3 years from now. That I'm in this place, and I don't want to do that. I want to do it right now. I'm not promised 3 years from now.
Right.
I promised today.
None
and
of
that's
us
it.
are.
That's right.
I first met you when you were working for Dan Forrest, and I have a great picture of the three of us.
Oh, that's awesome. You have to send that to me. Yeah.
Anyway, I felt then the way I feel now, that when you pursue something, you give it all of you.
Yep.
And I think that is one of the things that people appreciate about you, Hal.
Well,
is
I
that
appreciate it.
and the responsibilities that you will take when you become lieutenant governor are some of the largest issues in our state right now.
Oh, I would actually say in our country.
Yeah.
I really believe, and I
Just look at college campuses.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, the things that are going to come before, I am an optimist by nature. Like I'm if you know me, I'm pretty happy. Like what's the word? Happy-go-lucky guy. I like life. I love life, but I have a very pessimistic view of our future as a country right now. and it bothers me tremendously.
As do I, yeah.
And I really think the salvation of this country, other than Jesus, the salvation of this country is not going to come out of Washington, D.C.
No.
It is going to come from the states. It's going to come from limited government, constitutional, conservative governors and lieutenant governors that stand up and start pushing back.
Right.
And so I actually think the issues that will come before the state of North Carolina, I don't think the average citizen in North Carolina is thinking the way maybe I'm thinking right now. And maybe that's good or bad. I don't know. I think dark days are ahead of our country. I really do.
agree. And on that note, we need to take a break and pay a few bills.
Gotta do what you
So
do.
stay with us, folks. We'll be right back. What a great place we all call home. From colorful sunsets to panoramic coastal views. The best attractions are its people, a community of friends and family. J.K. Summers, attorney at law, recognizes this fact and is proud of his work to protect their rights. Put your trust in him to prepare wills and trusts, real estate transactions, contract and LLC creations, and criminal, traffic, and civil matters. Visit oakislandlaw.com or call 910-253-5572. J.K. Summers, attorney at law.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you or a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Welcome back, folks, to All Things Brunswick. I am Mary Stillwell. Today, my co-host is Todd Osborne, and we have a great guest for you, Hal Weatherman, who is running for, he is a candidate for Lieutenant Governor for the state of North Carolina, and we are very happy to have him here.
Happy to be here.
I would like to ask a question about, I think one of the concerns of probably just about every parent in this state and possibly the country is what I refer to as the gender crisis.
Mm-hmm.
We have teachers that are teaching children things they shouldn't be, I guess. I don't know how to put that, but I had one little girl say to me that her math teacher told her that it was okay to be gay.
Right.
And first of all, math teacher put up the red flags, and then second of all, I don't know. I couldn't even think after that statement.
Well,
But in your position as lieutenant governor,
yeah.
tell us how would you handle that? What would you do?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, you're 100% right, and it's not just in North Carolina, it's nationwide. It's dangerous. I mean, we're in a dangerous spot in our society right now, because if you actually look at what we're asking, people are now, we used to debate Republican versus Democrat. We used to debate conservative versus liberal. Now we've evolved so much further than that. We're actually debating what is truth.
Right.
There is no more absolute truth in our society today. It's all moral relativism, which is a dangerous, slippery slope as a people. When you are questioning what is a woman, right, for instance, you're in a dangerous spot. And so I want to get all the politics out of the schools. So if I am elected lieutenant governor, again, I'll serve on the State Board of Education. So as it pertains to what's in the classroom, I'll be intimately involved in that. And so I don't like all these three-letter acronyms that some of the school systems are doing. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion.
Another name for racism.
Well, reverse racism, sure. CRT, critical race theory. You know, those I'll use those two examples. There's no place for it in the classroom at all. No teacher should be asking my 3 children what pronoun they want to go by. The proper name to call my children is the birth name given to them by their mother and father, period. When a teacher is asked a hypersensitive, sexually charged question about gender fluidity or sexual orientation or all of the things, what you're asking, the proper reply is, interesting question, go ask your mom and dad.
Exactly.
Punt it, move on. That is best handled in the home. Our schools need to get back to basics, reading, writing, arithmetic, civics, social studies, the basics, and get out of the hypercharged political things. I call it the sexualization of our children. That's what I'm seeing happening in our society. I think Mark Robinson, as Lieutenant Governor, has done an amazing job highlighting. He created that Citizens Task Force where any parent could report in, because you're right, it might come in math class. It's not necessarily a curriculum. It's pieces of a movement, of an ideology that's being introduced piecemeal, which is very insidious the way it's coming into the system. And he created that pipeline of knowledge, right? But now we have to root it out. DEI would be one example, diversity, equity, inclusion. You know, DEI was never passed by the General Assembly. It was not put into the classroom by order of a judge, by the will of the people, by referendum or anything like that. It was put into the classroom by Governor Cooper himself by executive order. By the stroke of a pen, I hereby create the Office of DEI in the Wake County school system. And then he put cancer in our system. And now it's metastasized all over the state and
the country.
And the country. And so, you know, what I would like to see is a Governor Mark Robinson. If DEI was put into the classroom by executive order, it could be taken out by executive order. And by executive order, just remove it, cut it out and get rid of it and get back to the basics. So some of the pornographic material, literally pornographic material, XXX material, are in some of these books that are going into the school systems. And it's not appropriate. It's not appropriate for any age, certainly not in an educational environment. While we have Drag Queen Story Hour on school properties that you have around the state, there's no redeeming value to that. It does absolutely nothing to better the child. It's sexually inappropriate. It's age inappropriate. And there's no redeeming value to it. I mean, how does that prepare the child to live in the world and to do these things? And why they think that's appropriate, I don't know. So, yes, I'm a conservative and a traditional value conservative, and I just don't agree with that. But I just want the schools to go back to basics. Prepare my child to read and write. And by the way, I want our schools to teach cursive again.
Oh, so do
I want them to be able to read in cursive, if for no other reason.
And tell time
so that they
on
can
it.
read the founding documents of our country without having to go through some liberal professor's interpretation of what it says.
And tell time on an analog clock.
Yeah,
Because they don't know how.
Oh, I know. Listen, I'm with you. I've got 3 teenagers that grew up in a different world.
I can't believe that.
I know.
And that's one of the things that's getting me. My wife's CFO of a university, private university here in North Carolina. And they spent, I think in the past week, about 4 hours in meetings discussing what to do about all this anti-Semitic protesting and everything that's going on at these other schools and all. And I said, it's real simple. When it starts, shut it down.
Yeah.
You know, if they're protesting and that's all they're doing is using their First Amendment rights, that's fine. I said, but as soon as they call for the end of Jews, they're violating their civil rights by their protests.
Yeah, I mean, it's documented now on some of these campuses. They're actually standing in front of the kids, blocking their access to classrooms,
physically assaulting
them, or in effect trapping them in places, which is a form of kidnapping. And so, listen, here's the context. Everything happens in context. We live in a country now that under the Biden administration, the complete collapse of our southern border, deliberate. I totally believe that. Hundreds of thousands, if not several million, able-bodied, military-aged men, many of them from countries that commit terrorism against the United States, have streamed across our border.
Yes.
And then simultaneous to that, you start to see these protests. on college campuses. And they're already pointing out when they do get arrested or they get apprehended or whatnot, most of them are not students. And the media, it doesn't even go far enough. They will point out, well, 90% of them aren't even students. They're professional agitators. I want to stop for a minute. Don't buy into that. If a military-aged man that is not a U.S. citizen is on a college campus in front of Jewish people threatening to annihilate them while simultaneously wearing a Hamas headband, why would you assume they're some kind of political agitator? I'm going to call them for what they are. If they're acting like a terrorist, start thinking about, is this a dry run? Are they testing our capabilities? Are they testing our response times?
Our resolve.
Our resolve? What happens when these things start to turn truly violent? More violent than what they are now, when weapons are involved and things of this nature.
And they will.
And they will.
And
that's
I
exactly
see
right.
that coming.
Prepare. I do too. I think everybody does. And that's why they're so offended by some of these college, university chancellors or whatnot.
That won't do anything.
Who are appeasing and tolerating it. I will say this. Lee Roberts, the interim chancellor at Chapel Hill, of all places. One, Lee's a friend. Lee served in the McCrory administration. He's a good man. He's actually the son of Cokie Roberts. Y'all remember Cokie Roberts, ABC News? That's her son. Good for him. If you saw when they pulled down the flag and the frat boys went out there and protected the flag, good for them. But Lee Roberts as chancellor, unannounced, just walked out there and took the flag, and he flew the U.S. flag and put it back up. We need more chancellors like that.
Yes,
Exactly.
we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to have a pair.
Well,
Sometimes
that's
it
true.
helps,
Hey,
If you
I
can't
think he did a
stand
really
up
good
to
thing
what's-
there.
If you can't stand up to what's wrong, you have no business being there.
I just don't know how many chancellors in today's world would do that, and I'm proud that he did that.
Yeah.
I am. That was
Well,
really good.
the frat boys made out big time on that. Somebody
yeah.
started a GoFundMe page, and I think as of Friday night they had gotten $460,000. Also, John Rich from Big and Rich
Yeah, I
is
heard.
going to hold a concert for them specifically,
Yeah.
and Lee Greenwood will be there.
Really?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Don't tell me patriotism's not alive in this country, because it is. But
love
we're fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah.
We are, but the catalyst could be there to reignite everybody and get them awake again. I do think people are realizing. I know y'all do. I know I do. I think a lot of people are really scared about what happens. I'm just being
Yes.
honest. If Donald Trump loses this election,
Exactly.
like
Yes.
I don't know that our country will survive in its current form.
No.
If for no other reason, just the border alone. If for no other reason that alone. I mean, I can't remember. More people came across the border last year, in 1 year, than populate 6 of our states.
Yes.
So we added 6 states to our population last year.
Well,
And look at who they were.
That's what I'm saying.
When
Right.
when the normal person when they had depleted all the normal people to come across, they opened prisons and let them come across.
Oh yeah, we're
So
the laughing stock of the world right now. They're
We
literally
are.
opening up. They're saying, "Hey,
We
if they're
are.
taking them,
Yeah.
let's do this.
Yes.
Let's
send them on. Send them on.
That's their problem now.
My belief on all this is that the whole goal is for U.S. House seats. Because for every 700,000, because Joe Biden, his first day, signed an executive order that the next census will count all these criminal aliens as citizens.
I think that's definitely part of it. I think even over and above that, my fear is that they're really trying to destroy the capitalist system of America. Because, so many of these people that are coming across are going to immediately have access to our social service network.
Yes.
And they're going to overrun it. And you already hear cities, for instance, these sanctuary cities that are now ruining the day that they became a sanctuary city because
Yes,
their
they
social
are.
services are completely overrun.
Yeah.
And their tax-paying citizens can't get the services they deserve now because they've been overrun. I think that's part of the plan. I honestly do. I think this is a deliberate effort to bring down our social service network. And if you think about that, why would you do that? Because then the federal government's going to have to bail everybody out. And that's a move towards socialism.
And once you create the dependency on the government,
over.
they've got you.
They've got you. And then you grant them the right to vote as you're giving them freebies, right? And then you start to piece together, wow, this is going to change who we are as a country, not just culturally. It's going to change the fundamental tenets of capitalism and things of that nature. And I think that's part of the goal. I really do. And I don't care what that sounds like anymore. I just don't care what it sounds like because I think most people are sitting around saying that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah. Well, we are reliving the history of Argentina. Yeah, all
And
you have
Cuba.
to do is go back and look at everything that happened month by month, year by year. It is exactly the same thing here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And they're trying to imprison their political opponents.
Oh,
I
the
mean,
weaponization of our criminal justice system, of our justice system, is scary.
Yeah.
It is very scary, and that is very reminiscent, in my opinion, of Europe in the late 30s. And it's when you start to jail your opponents.
Well, and Castro did that
Sure.
in Cuba.
Sure.
One of the things, and where I started seeing this start to develop, was Josh Stein, when 68% of North Carolinians voted for voter ID.
Voter ID.
And what did he do? He turned around and filed suit to keep it from being implemented.
And we finally got it 10 years later.
Yeah.
Right.
So that right there was like, okay, they don't care what's going on. And it's kind of like Biden with the student loans.
Oh, yeah.
The Supreme Court's already said he doesn't have the authority.
It's
It
just
has to
about
be
holding
through
power.
Congress.
They're going to do anything they can to hold power.
It's buying votes.
Right.
Is what it is.
Right.
What are your thoughts on election integrity?
So I run an election integrity nonprofit. I run a group called the Electoral Education Foundation. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. That is my day job. That's what I do, and I still do that while I campaign. I would like to see North Carolina has a transparent system in comparison to other states. Like our election system is actually fairly transparent, and I'm not going to bore you with the detail in the interest of time. I know that to be true because of the methodology that our nonprofit uses to monitor the rolls, and I will give them credit that it's fairly transparent, especially in comparison to other states. In my professional opinion, what we lack in North Carolina are what I call redundant secondary fixed points. So you need a secondary fixed point to reconcile anything in life. Go ask a sailor. He or she's gonna find the North Star as a fixed point to navigate to get from A to B. We lack in our system, in my opinion, secondary fixed points, which help reconcile conflicted ballots in a contested election. And so my nonprofit, what we focus on primarily are the voter rolls themselves. And right now, the Board of Elections updates the voter file every Saturday morning between like 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. When they do that, my group goes and takes I'm oversimplifying this, but a digital screen grab of the entire file, and we put it on our server. And then we compare the updates. So we compare this Saturday's updates to last Saturday, to the last. And when you do that, you take a very large file and you shrink it. It actually helps you to visualize the movements that are happening in the file, and you start to identify vulnerability points in there. And it's a very complicated subject to talk about because it gets really in the weeds very quickly. But we have a white paper. My nonprofit issued a white paper that's available on our website where we document it based on our research. Here are about 12 or 13 vulnerability points that we see in our system that need to be fixed. And we're not looking for fraud, not trying to catch anybody in fraud. We're looking for vulnerability points that if you wanted to commit fraud, these would be the vulnerability points that you would penetrate. And then we lobby the General Assembly to try to make some of those changes. And we've had some success. I think they did of the 12 that are on our white paper, I think 4 of them have now been implemented in some way, shape, or form by the General Assembly.
How can you get a true, honest-to-goodness voter roll? How can you make sure that they are the folks that should be voting?
Well, so here would be one simple way, and this is actually one of our recommendations, so thank you for that question. I would like to see, before a race is certified, at the end of an election, you have 10 business days, and you have what's called the canvass.
Right.
And that's where all the ballots in question, the, quote, provisional ballots, get a secondary look at the county level, and then a judgment is made. They either throw out or they accept the ballot, and then the vote is ready to be certified. At the 10th day, the end of the canvass, all 100 counties go through that process. The race is certified. It's certified first by the Board of Elections. They just say it's good to be certified. Then the Secretary of State has to sign off on it and say, I hereby certify the election. That whole process, what was my point? I totally lost my train of thought of where I was going with that on the certification. I know what it was. When we certify right now, it is very normal. It is very normal for the statewide, any race, to be certified where there is an inconsistency of what the state is reporting on behalf of Brunswick County and what Brunswick County is reporting as their numbers.
Okay.
And that would never happen in any other institution where someone has like fiduciary control. Like, for instance, I can go to an ATM in Paris, France. I can put in my 9-digit code or whatever, my card, into that thing, and it's going to send a message all the way around the globe. It's going to reconcile to my bank. It's going to find my routing number, my tracking number. It's going to identify me out of the 310 million people in this country and say, that's the guy, that's his bank account. It's going to pull that money out, transmit it all the way across the globe, bring it out of that machine to the penny.
Mm-hmm.
Our election system is not run that way. My question is, why?
Exactly.
And so the number one thing that you should be able to do is no race should be certified in North Carolina, especially statewide, until the county and the state who's reporting on behalf of the county reconcile their numbers.
Yes.
Period. You
'Cause
put
it's-
that is a secondary fixed point. That's one of our recommendations.
Yes.
Create a dual system of reporting where before it's certified. Now, what I don't understand, if I'm the Secretary of State of North Carolina, if I'm Elaine Marshall, and I have the authority to certify or not certify a race, I am not going to certify a race until that balancing act occurs. I'm not going to put my name on that.
Right.
Brunswick County says 10,380 people voted, and the state says, no, Brunswick County had 11,200. On which set of numbers are you certifying that race?
Exactly.
So they should reconcile to the voter, and that should be done before we certify any race. That's one of our policy recommendations.
It's as simple as somebody being deceased. Because the family, that the last thing on their mind is to contact the BOE and say, my husband died or my father died, okay? That person can stay on the voter rolls for years.
Yeah.
And unless somebody is checking that out, and there he is. So, and that brings to question how many other things remain, you know?
Oh, trust me, yes.
I
We could do a
mean-
whole show on election integrity.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we should do that sometime. I'll come in and I'll open up a white paper and go through every one of them.
I'll call David and I'll have you and David in.
Oh, David's an expert.
He is.
Major Dave is our vice president, and he conducts all the research, and he has a researcher's mind, and that's what you need. You actually have to start, you know, and law enforcement does this all the time. Start with pretend like you're a bad guy and you want to commit fraud.
Mm-hmm.
How would you do it? What would you need to do that? When you start from that, then you go through and say what vulnerability points would have to exist in the system for us to
Right.
exploit that. And that's how you build your case of where do we need to put vulnerabilities in there.
Right.
And so, yeah. But
And
that's how we would deal with the certification issues, would be first just mandate it into law that you can't certify. I'm not saying you can't certify the race. I'm saying you just can't certify it until these numbers balance.
Well,
to the voter.
unfortunately, this
And
is
one of the things-
such an important entity of what happens in our county, state, country, when it comes right down to the wire.
Yeah.
And if we can't get this straight, I mean, we're lost.
I agree. I mean, it all falls apart if people lose trust. The thing is, if you just lose trust, if the people lose trust in the system, it falls apart.
Yeah,
Because it's built on trust.
right.
And so, yeah, you know, things like the photo ID, you need a photo ID to buy cigarettes, to buy beer, to rent a car, to buy a car. I need an ID to board an airplane. I need an ID. I need an ID to access Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, welfare, VA. I need an ID to get into the governor's mansion, by the way.
You need an
Right.
ID to be treated at a hospital.
Sure.
I
But
mean-
I don't need an ID to vote,
I know. It's
right?
ridiculous.
And by the way, if it's racist to provide an ID to vote, then it would be racist for all those other things I just
that
listed.
does not make
Where's the
one-
protest?
No, that makes no sense. No sense whatsoever.
By the way, I think it's how racist is it? How racist? How did they get away with? How did Democrats get away saying that we can't do a photo ID because the African American people will be disadvantaged by that.
How?
That they don't know how to get an ID. How racist of a statement is that?
I know.
That they are making. It is unbelievable to me, and
I
they get
know.
away with it. And
I
I just,
know.
it's a horrible thing.
Well, the
And,
media helps them.
Well, sure,
Yeah,
Well, of
that's
course they do.
that's the big part of it. Is the media helps them out with that a lot.
Yeah.
right. Well, listen,
And-
I think a lot of these cultural things, a lot of these cultural battles, will be solved, or will make great strides in solving them, in bridging the gap with in the media in particular, when Mark Robinson is elected the governor.
Well, that is our hope. Our hope is that we are going to have the right people in place to make a difference. And on that note, we must pay some bills.
Yep.
We'll be right back. You could be here. What a great place we all call home. From colorful sunsets to panoramic coastal views. The best attractions are its people, a community of friends and family. J.K. Summers, attorney at law, recognizes this fact and is proud of his work to protect their rights. Put your trust in him to prepare wills and trusts, real estate transactions, contract and LLC creations, and criminal, traffic, and civil matters. Visit oakislandlaw.com or call 910-253-5572. J.K. Summers, attorney at law.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you are a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Welcome back, everyone. All Things Brunswick. We're here with Hal Weatherman, candidate for Lieutenant Governor. And this has been fun. This time is flying by, and we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
What would be your first goal?
First goal
Yeah,
in
elected.
office? It's going to be, it's going to be two things. I get asked that a lot, too. I'll do the logistical side of it second. The main thing that I'm going to do almost immediately, I'm going to embed in the office of Lieutenant Governor itself an election integrity unit. And I know we're just talking about election integrity. But I've made that declaration that if I'm elected, that some of the staff that I hire will be experts on election integrity. And I'm going to embed in the office of Lieutenant Governor an election integrity watchdog group to perform a lot of the duties, quite honestly, that the nonprofit I currently run do. Because I'm a private citizen just like you. I set up this nonprofit because I didn't like the things I was seeing in our election system here in North Carolina, and I personally was impacted by it. And so I wanted to do something to leave it better for the next guy. But the reality is that burden should not fall on me, nor should it fall on you. If the state wants to have clean elections, they should provide that. And so I'd like to do that, number one. But, on a logistical standpoint, just, other than, taking possession of the office, being sworn in, hiring your staff, some of the things I'm going to do, we actually did with Dan Forrest back in 2012. And some people didn't see the wisdom of it. I thought it was amazingly smart. It was just good politics. It was good to do. I'm going to contact the governor and say I would like to, over the next 6 months in office, I would like to go through every agency in state government and personally introduce myself to every state worker.
Awesome.
And we did this with Dan. We never quite completed it, but in the first 6 months, we would go into an agency and walk cubicle to cubicle, office to office, and say, hey, I'm your lieutenant governor.
Great.
And I know it sounds a little, people are like, that's stupid. Not stupid at all. No. We had, I won't embarrass the man at all. We had this one gentleman, and I remember we went into this one agency, won't name the agency, and Dan came up and said, I'm Dan Forrest. I'm the Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, and I just want to thank you for your service. I understand you've been here 30 years. And he cried. He was a grown man.
Oh.
He said, are you serious? And
First
he was like,
time,
yeah.
I bet.
He said, I have never had anybody thank me for my service. I've never met the Lieutenant Governor. more or less the governor. I've never had any politician come back here. And he said, well, I'm not campaigning. I feel like I should thank y'all for your service. And also, like, if you ever need anything or if there's something not right, then let me know.
That's wonderful.
And, if you trust your people, right, you'll get all kinds of innovation. You'll get all kinds of ideas. Who knows better than the people on the front lines? But you got to open a line of communication. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the same thing politically with the General Assembly. I'm going to go over to the General Assembly early in my term, if I'm elected, and go office to office and meet Republican and Democrat and meet with them and say, here's who I am. Here's what's important to me. These are the projects that I'm going to try to accomplish in the 4-year window that the people and God have given me. What's important to you? What makes you tick? And just kind of build some kind of rapport, because I think we've lost that in society today.
Yes.
How dare you go into Democrats? Like, no, I'm absolutely going to do that, because they're still a person.
Yes.
They're still made in the image of God. And I'm going to go in there and I'm going to say, here's the things that's important. Because there might be some places that we would agree. And if there are, then I want to know that, And so I think that's a very smart thing to do. Mm-hmm. And Dan Forrest did that, and I thought that was very wise. And I'm going to set up long-term thinking. When I get in, I'm going to say, if God bless me with this, maybe he'll bless me with another term, or he'll bless me with something down that future. So I'm going to come in and try to build infrastructure within the government itself to accomplish things.
That's great.
We've
lost that.
We've lost it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about giving speeches. I just
No.
don't want to campaign, give speeches, get in office, and do nothing.
Right.
And so, you have to work within the system. If I'm elected in the system, like, on the state school board, I'm going to go to the meetings.
Good.
When I'm the president of the Senate, I'm going to preside over the Senate.
Good.
Because that's what the Constitution says I'm supposed to do. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to be vested. I'm going to be president. It's like, when I go to things, when I go and give speeches and whatnot, I don't have my phone out. Why? Because I'm with you. I want to be present with you. And so we've lost that.
Yes.
We've lost that in society now.
Who wants to listen to someone who's reading something?
Nobody.
Well, and we've lost we don't talk to each other anymore. We talk at each other.
Oh, yeah.
And
We don't even talk. We keyboard each other.
Yeah.
Truthfully, yeah. But I think going around, I think it's a wonderful idea. As retired state employee,
Yeah.
That's one of those things to where you get more with honey than you do with vinegar.
Yeah.
Kind of things.
You'll learn more, too.
You learn from your people.
Yeah, they'll tell you.
You know who they are. You give them the tools they need to do their job, and
Right.
let them do their job.
Right. Yeah.
That's right.
And
Before we go any further, Hal, please tell our audience where they can go to find out more about you.
The easiest is my website, which is my name, Hal Weatherman. Hal Weatherman, just like it sounds, just like partly sunny, better days ahead. Weatherman. HalWeatherman.com. And, my vision, I call it a vision statement. It's on there. Why I'm running. The About Me section is my bio. You can see my family and all the policies that I'm lifting up.
Super.
Yeah.
Yep. HalWeatherman.com.
Mm-hmm. Or you can find me on all social media outlets. Yeah. I'm on Facebook all the time. We chronicle our travels on Facebook. And I want people
follow
to be a
you.
part of that.
That's how come I know you're oldest is a track star.
Yeah. Yes. And today is my dad. If you follow me, today is my dad's 80th birthday.
Yes.
oh wow, happy birthday!
I know. Happy birthday to my dad. And we're gonna be up in Surrey County, where he lives, Elkin, North Carolina, this weekend, celebrating both Mother's Day and his 80th birthday.
I love that area.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I love that area. It's
That's where my heart
beautiful.
is. That's where I'll
Yeah.
That's where I'll be buried one day, and I'm sure I'll retire there one day when it at some
I
point.
have friends in Dobson.
I was just in Dobson.
Were
I was in
you?
Dobson yesterday. I was in Dobson yesterday. I was in Dobson yesterday at a lunch meeting.
And of course, you can't go to Mount Airy without thinking about Andy Griffith.
Andy Griffith, sure.
So,
Oh yeah. My mom and dad knew the original Floyd, the real Floyd.
really?
And I met his son. I can't remember his real name, but we were in Mount Airy recently and went into the Floyd's barbershop, the
Oh,
real
yes.
Floyd's barbershop
Yeah.
that's been there. Andy Griffith got his hair cut there.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked in and said, Hyatt, his last name's Hyatt, Bill Hyatt. And I remember, and I said, well, I know your father. My mom and dad knew your father. I didn't know it was him. I said, my mom and dad knew the real Floyd. And he said, well, the real Floyd was my father.
Oh.
And I said, my mom and dad knew your. Yeah. And so anyway, he didn't even know I was a candidate. So I'm sitting there talking, and sorry to ramble on this, but you'll love this.
That's okay.
And he said, well, I'm his son, and I'm the proprietor here now. And he said, what do you do? And I said, I'm actually a candidate for lieutenant governor. And so we got to talking all that. He's very conservative. And he said, I want you to sit down here, get a picture. And so I sat in one chair. He said, no, I want you to sit in that chair. And I said, this chair not good enough? And he said, no, I want you to sit in this chair. And so I sat there, and we took the picture. And when we got done taking the picture, he said, so my father had a tradition that every governor since I want to say it was in like 1980 has sat in that chair.
Really?
When they came by to get a picture. And I wanted you to sit in that chair because who knows, maybe one day you'll be the governor.
There you go.
And I wanted to get your picture in that chair. And I thought that was the
There you
coolest thing.
go.
Now, I didn't even know it when he took it. He said, no, you need to be in this chair. And so I texted Mark Robinson. Of course, Mark, is bald. I texted Mark and said, next time you get your hair cut, you need to come up here and sit in Bill Hyatt's chair, but make sure it's the right chair. Yeah, I don't think he liked that. But I'm serious. He does need to go do that. So, and I'm going to get on him to go up there and do that. So.
Oh, my.
Well, he can still get a shave.
He can get a shave, whatever. He knew what I meant. I'm like, get up there and sit in that chair, man, because, they're good people.
I have a question for you before we call it a day. And I would like to know what advice you would give to each and every one of our listeners when it comes to a difference they might make for our country.
Well, I would say, my advice is meaningless. The Bible's advice is true. And the Bible is very clear that you are to pray for those in authority, period. It's the biblical admonition of what we are to do as people. One, if you want to heal your land, don't look at other people, right? If the people called by my name will humble themselves, right? Look in the mirror and look at you and get your life right. Mm-hmm. If you do that, you'll start to change society. Then God will hear your prayer and He'll heal the land, right? That's a paraphrase, but that's the admonition. And as for the people that are in authority, regardless if they're Republican, Democrat, whatever they are, you are to pray for them. And I believe in government at all levels. I believe government is God ordained. I believe that God. The institution of government is God-given, just like the institution of family is God-given.
Right.
And it's there to provide order and security and peace, if for no other reason, so that the gospel of Jesus Christ can be openly preached. That is what it's here for. And so pray for your people pray for wisdom. I pray for Roy Cooper. I disagree with him, but I pray for Joe Biden. I pray for his family. Mm-hmm. I pray for wisdom, right? And so, and I think we as believers, a lot of times, we're conservative politically, and sometimes we elevate the politics over what the Bible says to do.
Yes.
And so when people are losing hope, which I totally understand, when people are like, oh my gosh, the end of the world's come, whatever it is you're thinking, remember, God reigns supreme. God is sovereign. Yeah. God is working in the affairs of man. And but He desires certain things. He doesn't need us. He doesn't need me. He doesn't care my pedigree, my background, my experience, my failures, my successes, whatever talents He doesn't care. He doesn't care about any of that. All He wants is for you to have a servant's heart. He wants you to stand.
Yeah.
And the victory is not ours. That's the other thing. The victory is not ours. And I hear that from conservative believers all the time in politics. We have to win. No. Mm-mm. That is not what you're called to do. You are called to stand. And it's hard enough just to stand in this world when everything's against you. Just stand. The victory goes to God. He just wants you to stand.
Yes.
And so pray and stand. And you'll know when the time to stand is.
Right.
You'll know it, and you'll know you have a choice, and you better act appropriately when that time comes.
Yeah. Yep. And be true to yourself and own it.
That's right.
Exactly.
I cannot thank you enough for joining us today. We've had a wonderful show.
I've enjoyed it.
I was thinking, I choose some shows that I do to be a rerun. And they have to be quite special to do that. And I have to tell you that this definitely is one of them.
Nice.
But we do invite you to come back whenever you
Anytime.
wish.
I would love it.
Yep.
And I will.
And we would like that very much.
It'd be fun.
So, and Todd, thank you.
Course.
For joining me once again, my sidekick folks. And TK.
Troublemaker.
Not. And please join us again next week. We will be at the Boiling Spring Lakes Police Department, where we are going to do a remote as they dedicate the building to my friend Mitch Prince, who died in the line of duty in 2005. So do join us, and we'll see you tonight. Good night.